The most popular video on my channel continues to be the best Harley for your first Harley and ones to stay away from. And while I've had one follow-up to that video, it's now time to do a complete makeover of what I believe are the best and worst Harley Davidsons for your first ones, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, there's going to be some bikes that, of course, are omitted off of the list now because of changes in Harley Davidson's lineup, and honestly, changes in my opinion on some of the Harley Davidsons out there. There may be a returning bike or two, and then, of course, there's going to be some new bikes here as well. Either way, I'd love to hear your opinion after the video. What do you think the best Harley Davidson is for your first Harley, and maybe even one that people should stay away from? Let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing and hit your notifications, and consider joining the Shot Squad either here or over on Patreon. Let's go ahead and get started. Some of the parameters that I'm using for this video are very simple. Comfort. This is a huge one for a lot of people, and it's a big one for me personally as well. We'll get a little bit more into that here in a minute. Also, the capabilities of the motorcycle. What are Harley Davidsons known for? They're known for, of course, comfort. They're known for long distance touring. They're known for style. And regardless of what the internet says, they're known for being reliable. Remember, these are not the AMF days any longer. And those are the parameters that we're going to use. And the very first bike that we're going to put on the list here is one of the best Harley Davidsons that they make and they have made for a really long time, and that is the Harley Heritage. Now, all of these bikes come with the 114, and of course you have the Revival, which is a brand new motorcycle for this year, which has some really cool 50s styling to it, but it's on the Harley Heritage frame, right? That's essentially what it is, with a different paint job and different scheming throughout, but it is a Heritage at the heart of that motorcycle. And to be honest with you, this is a bike that totally surprised me a couple of years ago when I rode it. I really thought I was going to hate this bike because of the styling, but this one has one of the most important things to me personally and to a lot of Harley riders, and that is comfort. The bars, the seating position, and where the floorboards are positioned, absolutely perfect. I'm 5'7", and I love the position of everything on this motorcycle. It is probably still the most comfortable out of the box Harley Davidson that I have ever ridden. Now, the Softail lineup has actually been around since the 80s. We had a recent change in the 2018 models where they got rid of the Dynas and they all went to Softails now, and the Harley Heritage has been a staple in the Softail lineup since 1986. So you get the appearance of a hardtail while still, of course, retaining that suspension and comfort. And again, the comfort is one of the things I really love on this motorcycle. But another thing that I like about them is over the past couple of years, they have gone away from all of the chrome that has kind of defined the Harley Heritage Classic. And now they have, you know, just straight blacked out with the 114. This year they have the Red River Rock, or the Red Rock River color with the vivid black that looks freaking awesome. I kind of think the two-tone paint schemes on the Heritage look the best. You have these studded leather saddlebags, but they are sealed and they're lockable as well. You get some modern conveniences like ABS. You get a 5-gallon tank, so if you're doing some long distance touring, of course you have the windshield. You have incredible lighting with their Daymaker LEDs. And the bike comes in at like 728 pounds, so it's not too heavy like, you know, your Ultra and Road Glide Limiteds. You, of course, have keyless ignition on these bikes. You have the speedometer, which is still on the tank, which in my opinion looks better than some of the other Softail models out there that have like a little LCD, you know, in between the handlebars or something like that. I really love that, you know, old school styling of this motorcycle, and you can call me an old man, whatever, that's fine. But even the big fenders on this bike, I just really love this styling. I think it's awesome. It's one of those motorcycles, if you're not crazy about the styling, I would encourage you to go test ride one. get on one, sit on it for a while, and tell me what you think, because it is amongst one of the most comfortable Harley Davidsons, and it strikes a really good balance from one that you can just cruise around town on to one you could do some light to medium, maybe even long distance touring on this bike. It is a really good all-around motorcycle, and it's not going to cost you $30,000 or $40,000. Now, the Harley Heritage is a bike that I would recommend over the Road King Special. Now, I've talked about the Road King Special before, and even though I do like the saddlebags better on that bike, pretty much everything else, from the bars to the windshield and even some of the styling, to be quite honest with you, I just like better on the Heritage Classic or the Heritage 114. I just find it to be a more comfortable motorcycle, and that's about all I can say. I mean, the styling on the Road King Special is really cool. It's all blacked out, you know, 114 engine. I mean, you buy a windshield for that bike and boom, there you go. I just personally like the styling of the Heritage more. I would have no issues recommending the Road King Special, but I would definitely say there's some things you need to put on there before I call it quote-unquote road ready, and mainly that's just adding a windshield, so that way whenever you do want to do some touring on that bike, you have a little bit of protection there from the wind. That's going to take us to the other side of things. Here's a bike that I would stay away from, and that is the Harley Sportster S. Now, remember when I said that comfort is a big thing for me personally? I'm like 2 weeks removed from back surgery at this point now, and it is one of those things that I always have to consider. Maybe this will change after my recovery period. Maybe I can ride some of these other motorcycles and actually be comfortable. But to me, even that aside, the Sportster S, it's a fast motorcycle, 121 horsepower. It's a lightweight bike. It has some really cool technology, but the styling is another one of those areas I'm just not a huge fan of. I would take one of the old Iron 1200s before I would take a bike like this. I would probably, yeah, actually I know I would. I would take a Street Bob over the Sportster S, just because I like that kind of old school styling in these soft tail bikes, right? But I also like the old school styling in the Sportster models. I just think they fit better, right? I think the Sportster S would have been a great complement to the, you know, the Irons and the Iron 1200 especially. But to remove those bikes in place of the Sportster S, it's not something that I would personally do. Now, if I had to choose any of these Harley Davidson sport bikes, I would go with the Nightster. It still has the Revolution Max 975, so that's a liquid cooled motor. It's got a 3.1 gallon tank, you know, that's under the seat. The air box is, you know, traditionally where the tank is, you know, the fuel tank on the bike. Comes with the modern conveniences, and of course they do have the special version of that, so that's going to have, you know, your display with everything built in. The OG version of the Nightster still has like an old school display with a little bit of information down at the bottom, a little LED screen down at the bottom of the display, and an old school tag. Now, I'm a fan of new technology, so if I had to choose one of the Nightsters, it would probably be the Special. But I just think the styling is not so far removed from what the old Sportsters used to be. And out of the 975, you're not going to get nearly as much horsepower as you will out of the 1250. I still think it's just a better looking motorcycle all the way around, and it looks like a more comfortable bike. I rode the Sportster S one single time, and that's all it took for me to say I really didn't want anything else to do with it, to be honest with you. I don't really like the exhaust. I don't like the rear fender. And the styling in the front is okay. I kind of like their new upgraded LED. And listen, I'm not somebody that thinks that Harley Davidson needs to stay in the 1980s and 90s. I think they need to push the bar along, as you're about to see with one of the bikes I'm about to mention here. But just the soft tails and the Sportster line, that's where I draw the line, and that's where I think old school styling with upgrades in the motor would have been a better move. but that's just my opinion. And hey, I don't design motorcycles and I don't sell motorcycles. It's just from the outside looking in. I'm not a big fan of the styling nor the way that those motorcycles specifically ride. Now, a bike I would recommend in Harley's lineup if you are looking for a do-it-all motorcycle with some of the coolest updates. It does not look like a Harley whatsoever, but I think they nailed it with this specific motorcycle. That is the Pan America. Now this year you have the option of the Pan America Special, which is coming in at like $22,000, somewhere in there. And then the CVO Pan America that I saw down in Orlando when we went down to Daytona, which comes in at like $29,000. Now the CVO is already set up straight from the factory. You have your bags. You have the Revolution Max 1250 engine, which is 150 horsepower. In order to get those horsepower numbers out of any other Harley Davidson, you're going to be spending about $44,000 with the CVO Road Glide ST. And that bike, in my opinion, is limited in what it could do versus the Pan America. Pan America, of course, is a dual sport. So whether you're on-road or off-road, this bike can literally do it all. That adaptive LED is going to, of course, be reading the lean angle of the bike. And as you lean more, it's going to provide additional light in any kind of blind corner or if you're off-road. You also have the additional day makers to give you even more light. You have that exoskeleton look that a lot of dual sports have with the engine guards and the front headlight guard. Of course, you have special coloration with the CVO version this year. Of course, you have specialized paint and badging with the CVO model this year. But in my opinion, they all look good. How, just the specials even have the bar and shield that goes from the tank to, halfway on the front of the fender or the side of the fender. All the way around, I think the bike is freaking sexy. You have an adjustable windshield, and you have all of the technology that you would expect out of a new motorcycle and a new motorcycle design. Of course, it is liquid cooled, but you have ABS, drag torque control, wheelie mitigation, cornering ABS, cornering drag torque control, all of that stuff. And of course, those parameters can be adjusted. You have different ride modes, adjustable brake and clutch lever, I believe, on this bike, and a 6.8-inch TFT display. So not only can you do long distance touring, not only can you go on-road or off-road, you can commute on. It's one you can go long distance on. It's one you can ride around town with your friends on. It literally is a do-it-all motorcycle. Get a Cardo headset, save yourself some money with the discount code and link in my description. Put that on your helmet. Now you have your music and ability to take calls if you want to. And boom, there you go. This is literally a do-it-all nearly perfect motorcycle. It is one of my favorite Harley Davidsons in the lineup, and one that I would highly recommend to somebody that wants to do a little bit more off-road and on-road motorcycling. Now, let's talk about a softail that I would recommend and one I wouldn't recommend. We'll start with the one I wouldn't recommend. That would be the new Breakout. Now, styling-wise, this bike looks freaking awesome. You have a big 21-inch wheel in the front. You have an 18 in the rear with a big 240 millimeter rear tire. You have a very minimalist rear fender. Of course, you have that 117 with the heavy breather. Overall, when it comes to like a softail or a muscle type of bike, it looks really good. So styling isn't an issue. One of the biggest issues, in my opinion, is how comfortable or uncomfortable this bike is and the lack of a lean angle that you're going to get. Now, let me go ahead and say right off the rip, I understand that this bike is not meant to be, this super tight turning type of bike. Of course, you can, do your low speed maneuvering on it. It's going to be a little bit harder. It's going to be a lot harder than other motorcycles, but you only have a 26.8 degree lean angle. And it's going to be a lot harder to turn with the bigger front wheel, of course, and more importantly, that 240 millimeter rear tire. You got to get that thing all the way over to the edge. And I found that this bike was really good in a straight line, and that's about it. So if you want a more nimble version of a softail and one that I believe is going to give you more options, I'm going to go with the Lowrider ST. Now, if you remember my review from about a year ago, I'm not the biggest fan of the ST, but I think it's a better option than the Breakout. When a viewer of mine dropped his ST off so I could actually review it, there's one thing he did after my review, and he actually went out and put a relocation kit for his controls. And those mid controls was one of the biggest issues because I found myself cramped. So he was able to move those quite a bit forward. I think they were like, I don't know, 5, 6, or 7-inch controls or relocation kit, so he can move those a little bit away from you. And I'm sure that made a huge difference. He said they made a huge difference, and I have every reason to believe him because that was one of the biggest issues that I had with the bike. But when it comes to functionality, obviously you're going to get a little bit more wind protection with that fairing. You're going to get a set of hard bags, and even though they're clamshell style bags, they're still going to hold more than a bike with no bags. And functionality is one of those things that people look for when it comes to Harley Davidson, and the ability to do some touring is what a lot of people want out of their Harley. So not only do you have really cool kind of old school styling with the single headlight and the teardrop style tank and all of that kind of stuff, but you also have some modern conveniences there too, and you have that 117 motor. Now, it may be a little less powerful than the new 117, but let's be honest, it's also a little bit lighter than what you're going to find in a new road or street glide, so the bikes will flat out get it. So all the way around, I think even the Lowrider S or the ST is going to be a better option, and one that I would recommend if you want a good around town and maybe light to medium touring motorcycle. I think the Lowrider S and ST would be one that I would recommend over something like a Breakout. And that leads me to my last two motorcycles, one I would recommend and one I wouldn't recommend. And we're going to again start with the ones I wouldn't recommend, and that is the Ultra and the Road Glide Limited. Now again, these are bikes that I highly recommended. I thought they were probably even better than the Street and Road Glide specials from years prior, but they offered a couple of things back then that the new ones now have, and so we're of course going to get to that. But the Road Glide Limited and Ultra Limited are twin-cooled motorcycles, so that was always one benefit that you got. So in theory, they should run cooler than a traditional oil and air-cooled motor. And they're also going to come with the tour pack. They're going to come with the lower fairing. So you're going to have everything you need for a long distance touring motorcycle. But you still have the 114. So when you compare that to the new Road and Street Glide, not only are those bikes like almost 100 pounds lighter, but you're also getting 105 horsepower compared to 93 in the Ultra and Road Glide Limited. Now, of course, once you add a tour pack on the new Road and Street Glide, that's going to add a little bit of weight, but it's still not going to equate to 100 pounds. And the new Road and Street Glide now have water-cooled heads. And the way they've run the water jackets, it actually runs to the rear cylinder first and then to the front cylinder. So in theory, again, that should keep you just as cool as the old water-cooled motorcycles or the twin-cooled bikes. So not only do you get more horsepower out of the new 117 with the new Road and Street Glide, but you also get a bike that's lighter and you get water-cooled heads. Couple that with the new styling, LEDs all the way around, and in my opinion, the new Road and Street Glide are the way to go. You add your tour pack, add yourself a saddleman seat, and boom, now you really have a bike that can go long distance with the rest of them with all of the updated features that I've talked about a lot with the new Road Glide especially, but the Street Glide is right there with it. To me, the new Road and Street Glide are just a better option, and they're going to come in much cheaper than the Ultra and Road Glide Limited. Now, there's also one more part to this, and that is, I believe the Ultra and the Road Glide Limited are going to get these new features probably at the beginning of next year. So if you buy the model now, unless you just really hate the new styling of the new motorcycles, in my opinion, if you want everything that comes with those bikes, if you just want to go ahead and get the tour pack and the lower fairings and all that kind of stuff, I would wait on the changes that they're going to throw into those new bikes instead of buying one right now. Or buy yourself a road glide or a street glide and just add a couple of things and boom, you have a bike that in my opinion is going to be better than what the Road and Ultra Limited offer now. And my hope is with the new Road and Ultra as well, when they throw those new design elements into it, it's actually going to cut some weight off of those bikes, because weight does equal traditionally a stable motorcycle, but we've already seen with the weight cut on the new bikes, you don't have to have that much weight for them to be stable, right? So a little bit lighter, a little bit more nimble. And to be honest with you, all of the rider aids are already included in the bikes at a cheaper cost. To me, I like those options better, and that's what I would recommend going forward, at least until those options and new redesign elements are put into the Ultra and Road Glide Limited. So those are the best first Harleys and ones to stay away from, in my opinion. Of course, I want to hear yours because I know you probably have a strong opinion. Whether you agree or disagree with my video, let me know what you think down below. Again, if you like what I do, consider subscribing, hit your notifications so you never miss a video from me. See you on the next one, and as always, hold 'em down.